like to welcome everybody to the Women Veterans Alliance webinar. This is our Wednesday webinar series. I'm Melissa Washington. I am the CEO and founder, Navy veteran of Women Veterans Alliance. And if you're not familiar with our organization, we are a nationwide organization with our primary focus is to connect women veterans with each other, resources through our online and in-person networking and events. And one of those events is our Wednesday webinar series. So welcome. If you haven't heard, we have launched a Women Veterans publication. We started in the state of California. It is a yearly publication that is available in print and digital. We are working on additional states right now. So if you are interested in bringing this to your state or have interest in writing articles or submitting your photo, advertising, please do not hesitate to reach out. And also too, in order for us to continue to grow the magazine, we do have an opening for advertising sales. So if you have some experience or are open to making some calls to help us get advertisers, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you're not connected with us, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Definitely subscribe to our YouTube because all of our webinars are uploaded to our YouTube channel, so you can watch those at your leisure. If you are not yet a paid member of Women Veterans Alliance, we are still continuing our membership promo. So if you are interested in becoming a paid member, there are of course additional benefits that you have as a paid member. We are offering a promo, so feel free again to reach out to me if you're interested in that promo and I can share additional information with you. If you haven't heard about the Veteran History Project through the Library of Congress, what's happening right now is the Veterans History Project is collecting and preserving accounts, stories, photos of veterans. So with that, we want to get more women to share their stories and be part of this project. The goal is to have 1,000 interviews by June 30th. So if you are interested, definitely visit the Library of Congress website. And get your information. Also, you'll have an interview. Someone will talk to you about your military experience. But again, it's very important for us to have representation. So please reach out to them. Also, too, there is a veteran art exhibit that's going to take place at the Library of Congress, which includes artists. And some of these pictures here you see are women that were killed in the line of duty, and they are going to be honored. Their photos will be in the Library of Congress, and that's taking place June 28th through the 30th. And also too, so if you are in the DC area, I will be there. So if you're available to come on the 30th, stop by and say hi. So our last two upcoming events that we have are next week, June 15th, and then we have the one in July 6th. Yesterday, we did have the podcasting webinar, but unfortunately, Curtis and Karina were sick. So we are going to be rescheduling that. So don't worry about it. If you were interested in learning more about how you can get your own podcast, don't worry, watch for your email and we'll definitely get the email out to get that rescheduled. Also too, in September, we have our nationwide event that's taking place September 9th and 10th. It is an in-person and online event. These are some of our current in-person locations. We're going to be providing an update with some additional locations very soon. If you are interested in bringing this event to your city, please again, reach out to me and we can discuss that a little bit further. So without further ado, I would love to introduce our presenter, Linda Patten. I've known her for a while. She's an Army veteran, founder of Dare to Lead with Linda, international speaker and best-selling author. No One Stood Up When I Entered the Room, one woman's journey from command to true leadership, radio show host on Voice America, which is now in syndication, leadership expert, mentor, and trainer. She's a gifted communicator, regularly featured live and online on business panels, interviewed as a leadership expert, and as a popular speaker and seminar leader on topics related to business and leadership. She holds an MBA in leadership, a bachelor's in nursing, a certificate in meeting management, various leadership positions in professional associations, major organizations, and the military. Linda, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Really, really wonderful. Well, wonderful speech. All right, let's get this party started. All right, Dare to Lead with Linda. What does that mean? Melissa did an excellent job of sharing with you my biography. I mean, I had several great years with the military, and I love it. My dad loved it. And so if I can provide services to my fellow veterans, I love to do that. And Dare to Lead with Linda actually came out of my military career. What we're talking about today, though, is leadership in this new world. The world is turning itself topsy, and traditional leadership roles don't work by themselves. And so we're going to look at a couple of things. We're going to look at something that I coined, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, that brings the masculine and feminine together, as well as what are some of the ways we can delegate? What do we need to be able to delegate? And two, what are some of the key skills that a leader today needs to have in order to lead their people and to make change happen in this world? And so let's see what that all looks like. Confluential. I love this word. You go, but that's not a word in the dictionary. Where did that come from? When I was in the military, I knew command and telling to perfection. I didn't need any help on telling people what to do. And the military is very good at that. You learn it as a basic trainee. You learn it all through your career. Even the women officers were taught command. And it's a simple thing. I was the parade adjutant for 2,400 women at Fort McClellan, Alabama, way back when I was a second lieutenant. And I had to be heard across those 2,400 women. And let me tell you, it is a real rush to watch all of those troops turn based on what I had to say. It really, I mean, it sits in your heart about it. So you have the command side, the telling side. It's something I have fine-tuned to perfection. On the other side, we have the influence or influential. And the two alone spin, but you don't necessarily use each other well. And so I was in a workshop, one of mine, and we were trying to figure out what's the name for what we're doing. We're talking about male and female, and we're talking about bringing them together. What does that really look like? My class started throwing out words that would bring those two together, and they came up with confluence. Now, a confluence is a river, and how two rivers come together to create a third. That's not quite it, which is why we changed it. I changed it to comfluential. I took the first three letters from command and the back of influential and created a new leadership style. The key around this is that it's like a dance. You know how beautiful solo dancers can be. They create drama and passion and other emotions in their dance. But when you bring the couple together, the masculine and the feminine together, it is much more powerful because the man sets the structure, in essence, the strategy, and how they're going to frame each other. She brings on in the creativity and the impulse and all the things that are the feminine qualities we have. And when they're together, like in dances like the Argentine tango or the paso doble, they're very fiery dances. But you watch the male and the female and how they play off of each other and what they bring. And I'm always in awe every time I see a dancer do any of those dances, and they do it well. So where we go from this is the fact that we as women, and some very good men as well, need to make a shift in their leadership capabilities. They need to look at, men especially need to look at, what are the things on the women's side that I could be doing that I would get more results with? We find that when you just tell, which is what all my mentors in corporate did, but then again, they were all men and they all came out of the military. And at that time from Vietnam, yes, that ages me just a little bit. And so I was comfortable when I went into corporate because these were men who were leading the way I knew. However, I got out of corporate and went into the world of the entrepreneur. And surprisingly, at least to me at that time, command didn't work. And I thought, I got to switch and let's go 180 degrees in the other direction. Let's do influence. And what I found was I was becoming too friendly. My people felt that they could take advantage of me. If they got an assignment they didn't like or they couldn't finish, they'd come to me and say, do you suppose you could do this for me? I really would appreciate it. And then walk away and go off to do whatever they wanted to do. And I was buried under their work and never getting mine done. With Confluence, you can roll from one side to the other, depending upon what it is you actually need. It's not like we're throwing command out and only saying influence should be the leadership style. It's the two of them. You need both of them. I'm going to tell you sort of a quick story. Many years ago, I was on a jury. Now, for being a wife of a lawyer, it's very seldom that you get picked for a jury. We know too much, and we look at things a bit differently than civilians do. But for whatever reason, I guess because it was a criminal case and my husband did civil, I was on the panel. And we listened to all of the testimony, and it was a drug smuggling and guns and a few other things. So we had about 5 counts that we had to resolve. And what we found was that our foreperson that we'd selected wanted more information, wanted some more paper. And I looked at what we had and I go, we don't need any more paper. We just need to organize it. I asked the bailiff the next day, could I have 5 pieces of flip chart paper and a marker? He said, absolutely, didn't question. And I wrote the charges and what it took to convict and put the 5 of them on the wall. And I said to the foreman, do you mind if we sort of run through this in an organized way? Absolutely not. So from there, I state what the charge was, what did we have to do to convict, and then open discussion. And they decided in which one they wanted. And in every case, we convicted. We were done in less than an hour. Now, there was no rush to judgment. We also had open dialogue until we got to a place where everyone agreed this was our verdict. We called the bailiff back in and he says, do you need something else extra? I go, no, we've got everything we need. We're done. His jaw dropped. He goes, what do you mean you're done? He said, the judge just let them go home because he didn't think you'd get done until tomorrow. I said, we're done. Can you call him back? So it's interesting. In this case, we had set up structure, and then with the querying their thoughts, what they thought as far as the evidence is concerned, what did it mean to them, and never pushing any one decision, but letting it bubble up to where you are. So it's fascinating what can happen when you use Confluence. I'd like to start out right now looking at teams and delegation. Dwight David Eisenhower says, the art of leadership is getting someone to do what you need to get done because they want to. The key is, do they find value in what you're giving them, or is it just another project that has to be done? Let's look at the first 2 R's of leadership. This is what I call the soft side of leadership. It's the emotional piece. And so we're going to look at respect. Respect goes 2 ways. It goes from you to your people and from your people to you. And this is a key thing that we want our departments, our teams, whatever it is, to have for each other is respect. You need to earn their respect. You need to earn their time, their capabilities, give them real feedback, and allow them to make their choices. I think it's very interesting that we don't necessarily work from this end. We give feedback, but it's sandwiched. It's tell them something good, tell them what they need to redo, and then tell them what they did and how wonderful it was. And that's not necessarily the only way to give feedback. I know when I was in HR, we were teaching sales training, and we had to go out with the bank salespeople. And what I did was I said, okay, I want you to take this call like you normally do. And at the end of the call, we got back in the car and I said to him, I want to know the one thing that you thought was perfect in that call. Well, what I'd asked him to do was, in essence, remember something fabulous that he could pat himself on the back that he had done. And he wasn't concentrating on all the things that he hadn't done. We were doing call after call after call. At the next call, I would say to them, so what did you learn from the call before? What things do you not want to repeat this time? And I can tell you that at the end of the day, his presentation was so powerful because he had brought in all the things that he did well as putting a different spin on the things that we talked about, perhaps not being quite as effective. And letting them make their choices. These are not children, they're adults. They know how to make a choice as long as you give them the opportunity to do that. I always like to say to my team, I really wanted pushback from you as far as, don't just take something because I said you should take it. If your plate is overflowing, then please let me know that, and I can assign this to someone else who has more time to do it. You don't want that person to be so overwhelmed and somebody else who's not doing anything. You want that balance in your team. The second R is reward. Rewards can be all sorts of things. It can be a simple acknowledgement. You can do something public, private phone calls, perks that you have, speaking opportunities, report giving to the board of directors, whatever it might be. The question here is, what do they consider a reward? What's valuable to them? For someone who is not really comfortable being on stage, publicly praising them or asking them to present something from the project is not considered a reward. It would be a punishment for them if they don't have the desire or the ability to perhaps stand up in front of groups of people. Same way with speaking and other opportunities. If they're not on board with speaking, they don't like it, they don't do it well, give them something smaller to do so that they do get a sense of, gee, I can do this. This is something I can make happen. And then gifts, certificates, gift certificates to gift cards to Target and whatever. But what I find very interesting is I don't necessarily value gift cards, because to me, it seems like an easy cop-out, especially if they're generic. Now, one of the places that I spoke, they could not give out gift cards, so they couldn't do any of the Visa cards or any of those. And they said to me, well, what would you like? What would be of value to you? And I said, I love tea, and I do 3 or 4 cups of tea a day. What I'd really love is, if you're going to Amazon, purchase me a fabulous tea. And they did. And while I was drinking that tea, I could always remember back to that particular audience, that particular speech. And it was a wonderful way to look back and to recognize what you've done and how it impacted the group. Oftentimes I will write them a month, 60 days out saying, hey, how are you doing? What have you taken away? What have you tried? What were some of the things that were most valuable to you? And at that point, I really try to incorporate those things the next time I give that speech. So both of these are more internal. That's what the R's are for, is what can we do to manifest desire and wanting to do things, and acknowledging the fact that they got done on time and on point. That's the most important. 5 keys to mastering delegation. Delegation is probably, and again, a very difficult task for some people. I have a really hard time delegating. It was always me, I'll do it. And my business got big enough that I kind of went, I can't do this all anymore. And so I sat down and I drew an organization chart of my business. And I put myself at the top as the president and CEO. And then I basically set out all the departments that I had and how many people were working for them and blah, 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 to get a sense of what did that look like. And I put my picture in every one of them. Because at the time of opening that business, there was nobody else. It was only me. And as I looked at this, I go, gee, I'm doing things that I never would do. I don't want to do. And so as I could find key individuals who had expertise in those areas, and I did not, then I would add them to my organization chart until the organization chart was full of people who were experts in their own field. And we weren't fighting each other for the work. One of the hardest things, I think, for a manager, a boss, a leader, is to give up that piece that they have so loved for so long and they're so good at it, but it's holding the company back because that's where you're focusing your time. Until you begin delegating and you're the only one in all of those boxes, it really makes it difficult for a company to grow and to perhaps morph, change, add departments, whatever it might be. So delegation is very key to being a successful business owner. So let's look at these 5 keys. The first is building your team. We just talked a little bit about that with, doing the organization chart, putting different people in it, and then slowly but surely removing your picture and putting their picture there. And the key here is bringing people on your team who complete you, but aren't exactly like you. You don't want to hire clones of yourself. What you run into when you do that is who's going to do the job, and are they really good at all of those things? You really need to be selfless, and as you build, bring people who are better at something like marketing or finance or whatever it might be, and let them run with that department. The second is obviously to delegate. Let them go so you can grow. The hardest thing for entrepreneurs is letting go. It's their baby. They've grown it to whatever size it is. And oh my God, if I don't have my fingers on everything, it will fail. Not so. I had a branch officer in the bank who had a very unique model of delegating and also training. When we get to training, she had on her desk a file box, and it had all the tasks that they had to do, all the reports that they had to run, and everything on a given day, a given week, a month, or on the annual basis. And she put them in this box, and it was labeled. And what she did was, every time one of her staff members came up and said, I'm done, I've balanced out, and I still have 20 minutes. What do you have that I could do for 20 minutes because I can't check out? And she had that box with all of these tasks, and she said, pick a challenge. So they go through and they find one that was 20 minutes and they pull it out. And how about this one? Okay, that'd be really great. And they went off, they learned the position, they went off and did the report, brought it back to her, and she had them sign on the back when they were proficient in that particular task. And what I found key to that was that they actually got to learn something new, so that when they were going out to find a new position in the bank or somewhere else, they knew things about banking that other people might not, other tellers might not, because their operations officer didn't give them that opportunity. Now, you also need to be concerned a little bit in delegation. One of my favorites was, I was in okay, dates me again, typing pool, and all of the dictation came into the pool. We converted it to paper, and then it went off to back to the people who given it to us in the first place. So we had headsets and dictaphones to be able to key all this stuff in. And it was a Friday night, and I got done early. I don't know why, but I did. And I went to all my colleagues in the pool and I said, do you have anything I can do for you so you can get out on time? No, we're in good shape. I think we'll be fine. So I went to my boss and I said, I'd like to go home a little bit earlier. I've got a date and all that. And she goes, great. But before you leave, I have a task for you. I said, ooh, what's that? And she goes, go in the kitchen, and the refrigerator hasn't been cleaned out in about a month. And I really need somebody to go in there and clean out all the food that has spoiled and, really mop it down and whatever. Do you think I ever left work early again? No, the answer is no. That was not considered, for me, it was not something that I would grow from. And two, it was not something I would really enjoy doing, even though it needed to be done. The third is trust. Stephen R. Covey says that change travels at the speed of trust. If you don't have trust with your folks, they will not go anywhere for you. So when you give them authority, ask for accountability. So to know what it will take for it to be done. So understanding how much authority do I have to continue to move, because if they have to come back and ask you for things over and over and over again, it's wasting their time, and it could be that you're late for turning that project in, whatever it might be. So make sure that they have the authority that they need to run on a day-to-day basis, and then ask them how they want to be held accountable for the task. It might be that every week you have a weekly report that they have to look at and fill out, or it may be a meeting that you have to stand up and tell the rest of the people where you are in the project. I was always shocked with project people as to how little they knew about the whole project. They were in their lane, and it was like, when somebody pats me on the back, I'll run and I'll take my piece, rather than being able to look across the entire project and seeing what other people are doing and how's that going to impact me when I get it, and what do I have to do to make sure that I don't have a negative impact on the people down the road from me. So there's a lot of things around trust that says, I know you can do this. I know you got it. Now, I need to hold you accountable for it as well. Strengths and weaknesses. Knowing that not everybody is strong in all the skills needed. I think that's really clear. And you should look at who has the experience to do this, or how can I train them on this particular piece. In other words, we can run parallel, and that way the other person is learning it and I'm using a mentor style, but running in parallel. So what we do with computer programs, or at least we're supposed to. And so really being able to be a mentor to the people under your leadership. And Sarah Blakely says, as soon as you can afford it, hire your weaknesses. Hire the things that you are not as strong in. Invest the time. Training is not a waste of time. Training is one of the most crucial aspects of your business life. I know if you don't train people in the complete process, but only in their little piece, it can cause all sorts of physical challenges. So one of the things that I set up with my folks is that you always train the whole process. You train every step. You show them where the OSHA requirements are until they get to the end. You do not, the first time you teach them, teach shortcuts, because that can get you into real big problems, especially if you're working on large machinery, like a stacking piece of where paper comes in and it's stacked, and then it's turned into a report. And if you don't know the fact that you need to turn off a particular switch before you go in and grab a piece of paper that is stuck in there, you can easily have an industrial accident. I know of 3, one of which I will not give you the gory details on, but the same sort of thing. If you teach the shortcuts, the person could be their first time on their own. It's like, what did he say? Did he say cut the bolts before? Or was I supposed to cut all of them? Or those questions should never come up if you do a great job of training. And just be aware that training is probably the most important thing you can do. And also giving them a mentor, someone that they can go to ask questions, to ask, could you repeat this? Could we go through this? Would you watch me do this? Whatever it might be, but a sense of always knowing that someone is there if you need them when you're going to be doing a particular task. Okay, the last 2 R's of leadership. And again, this is the softer side. The first is reason. Why are they doing this? Why are they in this particular position? What is their why? It could be their vision. They see themselves in 10 or 15 years in a particular position, and this is just a step in the road. Perfect. You can align the type of work that they're doing with that vision so that you all move forward to accomplishment. The second one would be personal gain. What might I get out of this? Might I get some training? Might I get some experience? What personal gain can I get from this? What's my reason? It's also great if your company has a reason for being in business. What's the business's vision? Where are they going? What do they want to accomplish? If you know this, then you can set the tasks appropriately. You can give them a game plan, in essence, of what we're going to do each month, or at least half month and a year, depending upon how long range this particular vision is. Speaking with your team members one-on-one about their vision and what personal gain they'd like is worth its weight in gold, because you can then work with them to make sure that they're getting exactly what they need to move on to the next space. And I really, people say, oh, I never want my people to leave. They're so fabulous. I know I'm going to get things done. It's okay to shake up the department a little bit. That people say, a job just came up that's my ideal job and I'd really like to go for it. Obviously, give them a good reference if they're a great individual and let them go. You might get another trainee in who you get to teach and find out what their vision is and that kind of thing. And I think that's really important to understand what they want, what you want, and align them so that you're all moving in the same direction. I have a picture that I just dearly love of lions in the snow, and they're obviously in some kind of enclosure, but the photographer was standing there and took this picture, and walking in front is one of the males, but directly to his left is a strong female. And then the rest of the pride is behind them, but they're all facing towards the photographer, and they have this look on their face like, we're committed. We are a pack. And I just thought that was a beautiful picture to explain when everyone is talking on the same sheet of music through their visions and their gains, the more likely you will reach your goals in an easy, effortless way. Reputation. Reputation is something that it only takes one major mistake or one major pitfall that you lose your reputation. It takes longer to build a reputation than it does to lose it. So you could go on the coattails of another manager who you value, who's within your team group, and who is willing to mentor you in order to be as proficient as possible. Also, build your reputation now. Don't wait. Build it now. Be responsible. When you take on a particular project, be responsible for it. Don't let it fall by the wayside. Also, the quality of the work that you put out is equally as important to develop your reputation. And of course, integrity. You must maintain integrity when you do this. Okay. Any questions so far? Melissa's monitoring the chat for me. Okay, let's look at the 7 key traits to successful leadership. First of all, as a leader, if you're not passionate about what you're doing or the next corporate initiative or whatever it might be, it's hard to get others to follow you and to be on board with your team. So you've got to be passionate. You need to find a way to balance any misgivings that you might have. And those you may be able to, deal with whoever the stakeholder is on this, so that you can bring up that ability to be passionate about your project. We've been talking before about delegation and that kind of, it's very difficult to delegate if you're not organized. In other words, if you don't know where you're going, it's really difficult to bring your team with you. And being organized is one of the key steps to making sure that you can bring your whole team forward, because they know what the next step is, what the next major deliverable is, and that kind of thing. So they are moving along with you and not being left in the dirt. Be responsible. I always say that, if anyone has a concern about my people, I'm responsible for taking the hit or whatever it is. And I'm also there to get all the kudos so that we can pass those on to the people who are working with us. Once you've taken on a task, you have to be responsible for its completion. Be focused. A critical piece when you're working with people of different styles, it could be the DISC style, it could be Myers-Briggs, it could be all sorts of different things. But knowing how your people like to work is very, very important, so that you can focus those project pieces that you're giving them to fit their desire, their ability, that kind of thing. So if you want things done correctly and you want them done quickly, you've got to be focused on, you can do this, you can do that, here we go, and off you run. Rather than being scattered and not knowing what's going on in your team with the other people who have been given aspects of the project. Communicate positively. Oh, what does that mean? When you think about it, how often do you complain in your communications to your team members, to your boss? And how many times do you actually sit down and praise somebody and talk in terms of the things that they've done and the congratulations that need to be given? I had a telephone company up in Washington State who, just as you walked into the cafeteria, they had these butcher paper rolls on the wall, and they were all the major projects that the company was working on, all their major initiatives. And there were circles on it that had to do with each one of the steps, and it told you what the step was. But as that step was completed, they would put a picture of either what it was or the team or whatever. So everyone in the building knew exactly where they were in terms of the project that they were putting out. It also gave them a great, ooh, they're getting close to where I have to get involved. I better get started on the preliminaries that I need to do before I get this task. So again, it's making sure that everyone knows what's going on, and that you're communicating it in a way that brings the team up. It doesn't bring it down. How many of you have ever felt that you've been talked at and that they don't have a clue what you're doing? Happens all the time. You go into a store and you want to buy a camera, and you have a really great idea of exactly what you want. And so the clerk comes up to you and says, "Hi, how may I help you?" And you go, I need a camera and I needed to have this. Do you have one like that? Well, yeah, I do. Hold on just a minute. And he goes into the case and he pulls out this camera and sets it up on the top of the case. He said, now this camera has that. But I asked for this, and this. Well, this camera will do this, man, not so well, but this is the better camera. No, I want this. So he goes back into the counter and he pulls up another one, and this one does. Ooh, what is that? Oh, well, it's only for people who are expert at taking pictures. So, well, I want this camera for that very reason that I'm not. What we found out later was the reason he was pushing this particular camera was that he got a larger commission on it if he could sell one, because it had been moving very slowly. And I think sometimes we do that with our people, is that we don't listen to what they have to say. And because of that, oftentimes things happen, such as you have a problem with a particular step in the plan, and you walk into your boss's office and you say, you got this monkey on your back that you really want to get rid of. You want to send it to your boss, and your boss wants to avoid getting it as much as possible. Well, you, as the person with the monkey, share all the things that are going wrong with it and what you need and that kind of thing. And your boss says, great, I will see what I can do. Well, at that point, the employee thinks they've left the monkey with the boss. And the boss thinks the monkey's still on the guy's shoulder. The monkey's lying in the middle of the floor, dying because no one is taking care of it. So be really careful with your communication. Another colleague of mine says you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in proportion. In other words, spend more time listening to what people are saying and acknowledge and feed back to them what you heard. That's, to me, is very important. I want to know that what I heard is really what you said and what you meant, because that's oftentimes when the communication lines break down, is when you think you've heard what you've heard, but you didn't. Character, making sure that your character, again, in the organization, with your constituents, your neighbors, whoever it might be, that you have maintained that top-notch character. They can always trust you to do what you say you're going to do, that they trust you to go to the boss and hello, and tell the boss why the department is absolutely stellar, and to also carry forward something that people have heard about. I hear that the department is doing this, and it's killing those kinds of gossip early on. Don't let that fester. Make sure that you have balanced it out. They have a clear picture of what you're really doing and what they might have meant, and how to maintain your character to everyone else in the business as well as within your own department. I also like to say that if I have a problem with someone, I want to know how you're going to deal with it. What are you going to do? And how are you going to rebuild their character and yours as well? Okay. So we have about 15 minutes left. And so if you have any additional questions about the presentation.
Perfect timing, Linda. I was just going to message you.
Thank you. And there's one more slide after this for a free gift.
If anybody does have questions for Linda, feel free to use the chat or just unmute yourself and ask away.
Tiffany.
Hi, Linda. My name is Tiffany Duffy. My question for you, thank you first and foremost for the presentation. I was taking notes pretty fervently while you're presenting. In terms of investing the time and providing the right training for your folks, just curious, any success stories, and then any stories that maybe you've learned some lessons on in terms of training?
Yeah, my husband's sitting here and I'm going, can I tell the story about the molten stuff that they were, can I? I'm going to do it anyway. My husband had a case with a gentleman who they were smelting metals and stuff. And once a quarter, they had to clean it out totally because it would have stuff at the bottom. Had a brand new guy, and he'd gone through this with his trainer. So he knew the shortcut. He knew that he had a couple, clip a couple bolts or undo a couple bolts, and then the molten material would, move down the stream and they could then get in and clean it. But he couldn't remember how many bolts he was supposed to cut. Was I only supposed to cut one? Was I supposed to cut two, or was I supposed to cut all four? How many was I supposed to cut? So he cut two and he added a third. And with that, the bottom fell out and all this molten metal flowed out. He was injured. We won't go into his injuries. What we learned from that is that when you're teaching somebody a new skill, especially if it has any kind of health issues or whatever, you teach the full process from step 1 to step 2, step 3, step 4. Then after they become proficient at that, and they can do that in their sleep, then you say, now here are a couple of shortcuts to make it easier for you, but you never teach the shortcuts. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I talked about the banker's box and my operations manager, and she also, if they took a card and they looked at it, they go, I'm not really sure what to do here. Can you help me? And of course, she was there to be able to give some training tips on how, where do you get it? What do you do with it? How do you report it back to me? And by being able, she didn't have to keep repeating herself over and over and over again. The steps were on the cards, and all the person had to do was to follow the steps. And she also had a grid on the back as to, they'd initial if they'd done the initial training. And then each time they redid that for 2 or 3 times, they'd also sign and they say, I'm ready to be certified in this particular task, at which time she would go with them and watch them do it and give them some feedback as to what they did well, what could they have done better. Again, 1 or 2 things to enhance it. It may have been perfect, but there are a couple of things that could enhance it. And then they got to sign off that they were confirmed in this particular task. So I have to be honest, I used to teach all sorts of things, and we always had a checklist for our trainees. So as we were going through it, they could check off boxes that they had learned it. And then the second and third set of boxes until they became proficient. And so we would teach and certify them in the first step or whatever it was that we were training. And then when they had completed the training manual, then they were certified in that particular job. Does that answer your question? Yeah, sort of, maybe, huh?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, sure, Tiffany. Anyone else who would like to ask a question? We have a couple in the chat, maybe, do we, or is that you, Melissa?
One of it was me. I just responding as Peggy shared many thanks. I will share with my team. Awesome.
Okay. Let me show you this, and then we can go back to questions. I do have a gift for you. It's a copy of an ebook I wrote called Management versus Leadership. And you can follow this link, or you can scan the QR code, and that will take you right to a copy of that you can download. I always think it's interesting because people go, well, I want to be a manager. Well, do you want to manage things, or do you want to lead people? That's one of the key things that you need to learn before you decide, am I going to be a leader or am I going to be a manager? There is a difference. And also there's a difference in how you get your work. Management, it generally comes from the top down, and you have to live with it. Leadership is being given sort of, this is the end result we like to have. You figure out how to make that happen. that gives you the ability as a team to come together and to look at, well, what's the project? What do we want? What do we want the outcome to be? And how do we make that happen? And you're leading the people, not managing the project. Okay. Any others? Ooh, all sorts of them.
Well, great. Well,
Oh,
thank
I
you so
love
much for
Karen.
offering that gift. That's very kind, Linda.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank Karen for her, yes, always acknowledging by saying thank you. Something else that a colleague of mine does a lot with is, I so appreciate. And she will do that after we've just done a huge project or whatever. What I really appreciate about what you all did, and has very specific things to mention about that. So yes, put acknowledgement and put appreciate in your vocabulary. Okay. You're so welcome for the ebook. And there are other books. I do have one that is called No One Stood Up When I Entered the Room, One Woman's Journey from Command to True Leadership. That really is my journey through leadership in the military, as well as civilian life as well. And it hit #1 bestseller on Amazon when it came out. And it's a great little book, and I had some really great reviews. I had one woman who said it should be in every women's leadership program in every college. So I guess it's pretty good. Anyone else? All right.
Linda, thank you again for your time and your generous gift. Great information shared. And just a reminder, this will be on YouTube. And I'll send out the link once I get everything uploaded. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.